Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Now that I have finished the Rogue Trader beta, I can give you a full assessment on the game's party members. Let's dive right in with Cassia, who is one of the few must-have members of your team. She was born a mutant with a third eye in the middle of her forehead. The eye allows her to serve as your navigator, which means she guides the ship through the warp as you travel from system to system. Nobody else on your team is capable of doing this, so if you lost her, it would essentially be game over. There are several navigators throughout the Warhammer universe, but Cassia is considered to be especially powerful because of how she can naturally bend people's minds to her will. She sees the world in different colors, and when people exude colors she doesn't like, she tries to change them and make them more appealing, oftentimes to horrifying results. Dialogue with her is absolutely fantastic, not only because you learn more about what it means to be a navigator, because Cassia has led a very sheltered life, so she is learning about the world and its customs through you. This is totally different from everyone else who are very set in their ways. I believe Owlcat has confirmed she will be a romance option. Combat with her is also a blast because she has the leader class, which revolves around ordering companions to be at their very best. She could force party members to move, take an additional turn, or flat out make them more powerful. Her and Commander Shepard make a great combo because he was my highest damage dealing character, and I made Cassia focus on getting the most out of what he could do. If you would prefer her to be more damage oriented, there is a list of navigator specific abilities that she can choose. Most of them revolve around using the warp powers that her third eye is capable of, and they can be absolutely devastating. Outside of combat, she has a high fellowship rating, which makes her great to cover all of your persuasion, coercion, and commerce needs. There's an item you can get pretty early in the game that also makes lower Imperium increase off your fellowship stat, so she could potentially cover that as well. The only caveat to this is there are a few times in the game where you are forced into conversations by yourself, and any persuasion checks are done with your own skill. Without finishing the game, it's hard to say how critical these moments are, but as someone who loves seeing all the content, it hurt not to be able to pass them. Next up is Yrilet, the only Xenos party member I have found. I don't feel comfortable talking about her motivations because I think it would be better for you to find that out during the game. Suffice to say, there are some people she really cares about who are missing and she wants to figure out what happened to them. That will require leaving her planet and searching the stars, something that's very dangerous for Xenos to do. Aligning with you is advantageous because your status can protect her, and you appear to stand against chaos, which she is strongly against. I enjoy dialogue with her because it provides more insight into Xenos culture, which is a unique perspective among your party. From a disposition standpoint, Yrilet doesn't side with the Imperium, chaos, or a benevolent viewpoint, so she's cool with whatever you do as long as it doesn't negatively impact her brethren. There are hints she could be a romance option, but Owlcat has not confirmed this. Personally, I didn't like her that much because she came across as very guarded the entire playthrough. This of course makes absolute sense, but it made her a little less fun to talk with compared to some of the other options. In combat, she serves as an adept, which in my opinion is the weakest of the base classes currently available, but it's still useful to debuff powerful enemies. She is also a sniper, which is a very effective way to approach combat in this game. She is also able to use any of the Aldari gear you pick up during your playthrough, which didn't seem to matter much in the beta, but might be more important when all the equipment has been added in full release. I made her a permanent member of the team, but in hindsight that was a mistake because she didn't really add anything new. My main character was already serving in the sniper role, and she paled in comparison to his abilities. Outside of combat, her main claim to fame is a high lore Xenos rating, which is actually very important, but something Pasqal can easily do. If your team is lacking in those areas, then definitely pick her up, but next go around I'll probably leave her on the bench. Next on the list is Jay, and she is an underworld pirate who trades in Xenos artifacts. This gives her the perspective of a human who is operating outside the laws of the Imperium, which makes her dialogue very interesting. She also comes off as someone who is funny and likes to have a good time. Unfortunately, her personal quest was bugged in my playthrough, so I cannot speak much more on her character development. It seems pretty obvious she'll be a romance option, but this has not been confirmed. In combat, Jay is a leader, but she is more combat oriented than Cassia. She comes with a sniper rifle, once again reminding you how powerful they can be. I really like leader mechanics and prefer to go all in on that route as opposed to focusing on the leader's combat abilities. Consequently, I left Jay on the bench and didn't regret it. One big difference between her and Cassia to note is that Jay has proficiency in both Aldari and Drukhari weaponry. This is actually a big deal, as some of the Drukhari weapons are absolutely fantastic and nobody else comes with the ability to use them. Outside of combat, like Cassia, she's a fantastic choice to cover all of your persuasion options. Next on the list is Idira. She is an unsanctioned psyker. Psykers are essentially mages, and the human ones are supposed to go through rigorous training that makes them less prone to dangerous, uncontrollable episodes. Idira never went through this training, and consequently, she is a more powerful psyker, but also more dangerous to use. A lot of our conversations revolve around being a psyker and how that impacts the way other people see her. Unlike most of your other party members, she really needs you, because if you got rid of her, it would essentially be a death sentence. This made her very loyal to your predecessor, and now she's trying to figure out whether or not you are someone she can trust. At this time, her personality is just so-so to me, but I would definitely use her in my next Rogue Trader playthrough because she is the only one of your party members who leans towards being Hereticus, and I absolutely cannot wait to corrupt her. Hopefully, she will be a romanceable Harley Quinn to my Joker, but Owlcat hasn't confirmed this. In combat, she can deploy absolutely devastating Psyker abilities. Psyker progression has not been completely implemented yet, but there's a chain lightning power you get from her staff that I absolutely love to spam. She's dangerous to use because as her Psyker abilities are deployed more and more, she can attract the attention of Chaos, which can cause Chaos monsters to join your fight. Despite this, I love having her in combat, and in hindsight, she should have taken Yrilet's place. Outside of combat, she has very high willpower, which is checked in many conversations to resist negative effects. She is also easy to skill in lore Xenos and awareness, which are both critical to have. Also, she can predict the future and warn you when enemies are approaching. This prevents enemies from being able to ambush you, which ensures you are always able to manually place your party members at the beginning of a fight. Next up is Abelard, and he serves as your Seneschal, which is essentially your right-hand man. A big part of the game is that your empire is in shambles and you have to piece it back together. More than anyone else, Abelard understands the mechanisms that actually make you powerful, and his explanations do a fantastic job of making it clear why certain things need to be done. This makes him a great person to talk with, because it always feels like he wants the very best for you. When you meet different major players in the game, he usually has more information about the nature of their role, along with a recommendation on how they should be handled. Definitely one of my favorite party members. In combat, he serves as a fighter, and is clearly meant to be a tank. He does a fantastic job of filling this role, especially if you give him heavy armor proficiency. That, along with the hammer, makes him an absolute terror on the battlefield who will take a lot of pressure off your squishies. Outside of combat, it's easy to give him high ranks in athletics, and even though he has a low Medikai rating, he is able to use medikits, which some party members are not able to do for reasons that are not clear to me. I kept Abelard in my main party the entire playthrough and never once regretted it. Next on the list is Heinrix, an Inquisitor from the Imperium. He believes that dangerous chaos cults have sprung up in the Coronis Expanse and demands that you serve as his chauffeur to investigate these leads. I absolutely love the dialogue with him because while he is perfectly polite, at the end of the day, he's not really asking you, he's telling you. There's nobody else in the party who wields that kind of power. Also, he is a sanctioned psyker who provides fascinating dialogue about the training required to accomplish that. Exploring with Heinrix is a blast because he points out all the things occurring that are against Imperium regulations. There were a couple of major philosophical clashes between us due to my benevolentia disposition, and those were a joy to experience. Owlcat hasn't announced him as a romance option, but there's got to be somebody for the ladies, and it's hard to imagine anybody else on the team fits the bill. Even more importantly, despite his hard exterior, it definitely seems like there are some holes in his armor, and he'll be a mainstay in my Chaos party to see if I can drag him down into the mud with me. In combat, Heinrix serves as a more damage-oriented fighter, and more importantly, he can wield psyker abilities. Unlike Idira, he's built to be right in the action, and it's a blast using his powers on groups of foes right in front of you. There are also some weapons that interact directly with your psyker ranking, giving him a greater variety of options than what makes sense for Abelard. Outside of combat, he doesn't give you anything that Abelard doesn't already do. I ended up benching him because at some point I will do an Imperialis playthrough and he'll definitely be one of the members, but even on the sideline, he had some great moments. Next up we have Pasqal, who represents the Adeptus Mechanicus. Absolutely a blast to talk with every time. This guy is more machine than man and has a very unique perspective. His cult literally worships machines and prays to them in order to make them work. His cult also jealously covets knowledge and are enraged at seeing dangerous knowledge in the hands of those they see as unworthy. This makes his dialogue great to experience, and I love seeing his reactions to the different people you meet. Pasqal is trying to uncover a plot involving his cult. I cannot really explain more than that because even though I've done his personal quest, I am honestly rather confused about what in the heezy is going on. The developments are fun, but I think I need another go-round to better track what is actually happening. In combat, he is an adept, which again is kind of weak, but it's even weaker with him because Pasqal moves like a brick. So even though he's kind of clearly meant to be a frontline fighter, I prefer to just give him a rifle and let him sling out debuffs while standing in a place that allowed him to block off melee fighters from my squishies. Giving him an ability or two that beats up his movement points helps with the mobility, but still, he's just not as impressive in combat as your other options. Outside of combat, he's my most critical party member. Because Pasqal focuses on intelligence, he gets high levels in tech use, Medicae, and all of the lore skills. There are so many checks that I clear by having him in the party that it's hard to imagine playing without him. Quick note before we review the last two party members. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you hitting the like button. This information lets me know which videos the community is enjoying. If you want to support this kind of content, please consider becoming a member of the channel where you'll get access to full playthrough episodes. Next on the list is Argenta, Sister of Battle and one of my favorite party members in the game. She is a deep believer in the Imperium and its tenets. Her conversations tell you a lot about what it means to be a Sister of Battle, while also revealing some of her own personal struggles. While adventuring in the world, she is the first to suggest cutting down any Xenos or heretical NPCs that you meet. Needless to say, she and Heinrix get along swimmingly. Contrary to popular opinion, Owlcat has not announced that Argenta isn't available as a romance option. Instead, they merely said that an Adeptus or Oritas would not be romanceable, which leaves open the possibility you can romance Argenta if she can be corrupted by chaos. I didn't see a window to do that in my playthrough, but hopefully the option is there. Her personality is cool, but where she really shines is in combat. Argenta comes with bolter proficiency, and the advantage these weapons have over sniper rifles is they are capable of burst fire. This allows you to spray projectiles in a particular area, potentially wiping out multiple enemies or doing serious damage to one boss. There are marksman abilities that directly interact with burst fire that make Argenta even more deadly. Hot chick with a devastating gun who knows how to use it is a serious draw. Outside of combat, Argenta comfortably slides into a role as your main demolition specialist, which is a skill you desperately need to have covered. She can also easily level awareness, making her fantastic at both finding traps and disabling them. Fantastic overall party member to have, and like Pasqal, it's difficult to imagine my party without her. Last on the list is Ulfar, and he is a space marine. His conversations are fantastic, providing you insight into how space marines are created and what kind of individual would be chosen to enter the program. It's also interesting to watch how his mind works while he is determining whether or not you are somebody who can be trusted. I really enjoy these interactions, but I do find it concerning how late you get him. Ulfar is not available until the middle of Act 3, and I am not sure how much game is left once that is finished, so he could be the new Grey Boar, a cool party member that most people will never use because he comes around way too late. Similar to Grey Boar, I am also not a fan of his build. He starts with Fighter, and it has already been completely maxed out with multiple goofy choices having been made. Why does this guy have 20 skill points sitting in demolitions? Also in my playthrough, it seemed like his armor was bugged as I never got a physical version of it that I could equip. Consequently, his character sheet shows 0 armor, but his physical model clearly shows armor, and he was definitely resistant to enemy attacks. Speaking of combat, despite his mediocre build, he's still a ton of fun to use if you can get around the fact that he takes up way more space than anybody else. Ulfar takes up 4 squares as opposed to everybody else in your party who only takes up 1. That means there are some spaces he simply cannot get to. It's difficult to maneuver your party around him, and perhaps most importantly, it can be frustrating to shoot at an angle that doesn't hit him first. Keep in mind the large size does make him very effective at blocking off your party from would-be attackers. If this works for you, then prepare to wield a party member who has Bolter, Plasma, Melta, Flame, and Space Marine proficiency. That's insane, and allows him to easily wield some of the most powerful items in the game. He also comes with 2 pieces of powerful Astartes equipment, a bolter, which is significantly better than what I was ever able to find for Argenta, and a sword that costs 0 action points for you to use. This isn't as amazing as it sounds, since you are limited to 1 attack per round, but it does allow you to stack up on all your buffs before swinging, which is very effective. He's also the only party member who gets a unique buff, called Unleash the Wolfen, which you can activate for 1 action point. This reduces his resolve to 0 for 1 round, but he gains plus 20 strength and weapon skill. Every time he deals damage to an enemy that round, all enemies must succeed a willpower test or suffer 4% penalty to their critical chance and an 8% penalty to critical damage against incoming attacks until the end of combat. That is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Outside of combat, Ulfar can easily provide the same services as Abelard or Heinrix. Unfortunately, I only had half an act with him and couldn't even see the end of that, so there's not much more that I can say. That completes my thoughts on the Rogue Trader party members. I think they're an absolutely fantastic group, and it makes me even more excited for the full release of this game. Hope all of you enjoy this video. Take care!